Hi, Alex, and everyone attending the Roadshow. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Afsha, and I'm the co-founder and head of 3D tech design at 3D Fashion Solutions. 3D Fashion Solutions is a team of expert apparel tech designers that provide 3D fashion services to fashion brands. Our end-to-end services include 3D product creation, digital marketing content, virtual fit consultation, and more. We help brands create better products and reach the market faster by implementing a 3D workflow in their product development cycle. The question that we hear very often in the fashion industry these days is, what is 3D fashion? While there are already a few explanations out there, I like to break it down in a way where someone outside of the fashion or the gaming industry can better understand it. 3D fashion designers will most likely tell you that digital fashion is a very new concept, but it's been around a lot longer than we think. Try to think of the first video gaming character ever. If they were wearing clothing, that too is considered digital fashion. The hype over digital fashion lately is because fashion companies are now using new technology to be able to design using 3D models instead of traditional 2D sketching. In order to understand what 3D fashion is, you first need to understand what a 3D model is. A 3D model is a 3D representation of an object or surface created using a polygonal mesh. Each polygon is created using vertices, edges, and a face. If you have ever seen a kid try to create a shape using those colorful triangle magnetic toys, try to think of it as that but in a 3D software. Or as I sometimes like to describe it, imagine you were given a block of wax and were asked to carve the shape of a bunny only using triangle shapes. The more triangles you would carve into it, the more detail your bunny would have. In 3D fashion, the concept is the same. The more triangles you have in your polygonal mesh, the more detail your 3D garment will have. Then you can apply textures to that model, put it into a 3D scene, and apply realistic lighting to it. For a bunny, you might decide to apply a fur texture to its body. The reason why this has all become so revolutionary for the fashion industry is because it all involves math. I don't think people realize how much math is involved in fashion. We now have computer softwares that are able to combine the physics of the fabric and simulate it with gravity. When simulated, this gives a hyper-realistic drape to the polygonal mesh. So you combine the textures and physics of the fabric and you drape it onto a mannequin that has been created using the measurements of a real fit model. So now you're even talking about being able to fit in 3D. In the real world, we measure the model, we create a paper pattern based off of the model's measurements, we cut it in fabric and stitch it together to create the garment. Patterns have been digitized already for many years, so we're taking that pattern and putting it into the 3D software now. This allows us to have a true digital twin of the garment. You can then take that garment and make further adjustments or manipulate it. You can also apply different colorways or different artwork. You're even able to take the 3D garment and use it in advertising instead of traditional photography or videography footage. Now, does this always mean that you need the perfect pattern or fabric physics to create digital fashion? No, because video game developers have been creating digital fashion in more traditional ways like 3D modeling or sculpting. I've now mentioned several times that you use a 3D software to create digital fashion. One of the best softwares out there and one that I use daily is called Browzwear V-Stitcher. Browzwear V-Stitcher is used by well-renowned brands all over the world. Some of those brands include Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, and many more. Today, I would love to be able to show you a quick demonstration of what the process of creating digital fashion in Browzwear V-Stitcher looks like. So let's get into it. As you can see, I have the Browzwear V-Stitcher software open and you have various different windows to work with. We've got the 2D pattern window and 3D window where my avatar is. And then you have a whole toolbar full of tools to work with as well. In the 2D tab, you have your patterns listed. You have a materials tab where all your materials will live. There's a 3D tab where your avatars and snapshots are. In my materials tab, I don't have any material applied to my current patterns, so I can go to the Browzwear library, and they have a selection of knit and woven fabrics or other special materials. So we're going to download a single jersey fabric to apply to our pattern pieces. Then I can go to the Arrange window and arrange the patterns onto the avatar's body. And if you hit Prepare, you will see those pattern pieces prepared onto the avatar. And you can move them around in the 3D window as well. So I'm moving them down to where they should be. And then we could go to our stitch tool. So you can stitch in the 3D window or in the 2D window. And if you have symmetry in the pattern pieces, you don't need to do twice the amount of stitching. So here you can see me doing some stitching in the 3D window. If I hit dress, that dresses the garment onto the avatar's body. And if I select the knit material, you can go to the physics and see what the content is and the weight, and you have all these different options for the physics that you can manipulate if you want to. I don't have a neckband for this yet, so you can also do pattern drafting in the program. So right now I'm measuring the neckline, and with my insert tool, I'm going to insert a rectangle shape for that neckband. And we're going to set the grid for it. The grid is what determines how many polygons you want basically in that pattern piece. So we're arranging it on the avatar's neck. And we're going to stitch it to the body. And I'm turning her because sometimes it's tricky to understand on the flat pattern piece what order I should stitch in, so the 3D window helps me in that case. Now you can see that we do need to apply some shrink to that neckband edge. And shrink can sometimes act as like an elastic, or when you're stitching a neckband together, it gives that some reinforcement. I can also edit the pattern pieces right in the 2D window, so I can increase the length of it to turn this into a dress. So all pattern manipulation can be done within VStitcher. I forgot to stitch that sleeve seam, so I'm going to do that. And you always want to update your simulation when you do any additional changes. I can go back to my library and select a different fabric if I wanted to at any moment. And just replace the current one with that easily without having to apply it to every single piece. And update the simulation. I can also add in different prints. So this is an AI artwork. And with the AI artwork, I can recolor it within VStitcher as well. So I'm going to group it. I can change the size of the repeat as well. And I'm going to go in here and update some of the colors. So it's a really great tool if you're a designer and you want to test out different colors on the garment. We also have the pressure and tension map. So if you're fitting in the program, you can see if some areas are too tight or pressed up against the body. Here's the tension map. And if you open up the tension map, that's where you see the mesh of the garment. You can also edit the lighting in the 3D space, since we can render from VStitcher. And you can render it as a 3D, you can export it as a 3D object to import into other programs, or a 2D image. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about what 3D fashion is with me, and about how you can create it using Browzwear VStitcher. I hope that now you have a more clear understanding of what it is, and maybe you're even inspired in joining me in this revolution in the fashion industry. Take care, everyone.